Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to this session of the Green Deal section of Campus Party Digital Edition. We will present ourselves. First of all, my name is Corrado Paterno, and together with me there are Stefano and Shai.
Hello, my name is Stefano Bongi.
Hi, my name is Shyam Ramkumar.
And we are part of Movos, a pro bono organization helping startups and young entrepreneurs to focus on sustainability and the social impact while making business. And today we would like to present you a short presentation on how you can make your startup more sustainable and impact focused. We thought that it would be interesting to involve you in an exercise together and do some work in order to both help you if you already have a startup and an existing organization to reflect on social impact and sustainability, or if you are interested into these topics and you want to start building your own business, on how you can set this kind of mindset within your preliminary work when setting up a new business. So we will share the screen in order to show you the presentation. You can comment and ask questions when you want. There will be a short introduction on what we do and who we are, and then we will go straight to the point and work together with some exercises we will send you. Okay. So I guess now you can see the screen. I will try to make it bigger. Okay. So first of all, we would like to show you some of the businesses that we like and we think are relevant in terms of social impact and sustainability. You can answer in the chat if you like. I don't know if you are familiar with the Too Good To Go, for instance. We will do a short presentation on this business in 2 slides. And maybe you are familiar also with Hummus Job, a new startup from the Italian market. Or probably, I don't know, with Swappy, an international startup which works in the mobile sector. All these 3 different startups have something in common. And what they have in common is that they are tackling somehow social and environmental challenges and building a business behind this social commitment. And they do it in different ways. Some of them are more radical and others are more business oriented. In this kind of presentation that we are doing, we don't want to discriminate from one type of business to the other, saying that one is fully socially focused and one other is not. What is important is start to reflect on social and environmental problems that can become business opportunities. And we liked how these companies did it. For instance, Too Good To Go started from a very important topic nowadays, the food waste, which is really a plug in terms of carbon footprint. And they build a very interesting business, which is very well known in Europe and beyond nowadays, helping people to sell food that would have become waste and other people to buy it. Another interesting example is Hummus Job. This is a more radically social startup working in the agriculture sector, since they provide entrepreneurs in the agriculture sector with the contact to workers that are interested in and are seeking for jobs. And we know that in agriculture, especially in Italy, the black market is huge, and they are doing a great job in reducing and tackling this kind of social challenge. And finally, there is Swappy. Probably is the less socially or environmentally oriented startup, but still it's interesting because they are proposing a model in which they refurbish existing smartphones, and in this way consumers can buy already existing products without using new resources. So this is very good in terms of environmental impact, and they are showing this impact in their website very clearly with statistics regarding the carbon footprint and other environmental factors that they took into account. So in this case, we see that when a startup talks about social and environmental issues and has a strategy behind, this can become an opportunity. We have seen that 66% of consumers are willing to pay for more sustainable goods. And now the statistics are growing. So more and more consumers are asking for this kind of products. And we did a brief research looking at funding opportunities, and we have seen that almost a half of the opportunities for startups and SMEs are focusing or have elements calling social environmental issues as a factor to consider. So if you are tackling these kind of issues, you are you have more possibility of founding your own business. And also in terms of equity crowdfunding, which is a new phenomenon spreading in Italy, and also impact investing. And finally, it's very important for your employees or your collaborators. When you work nowadays, you want to work for a purpose, and a social environmental challenge is a purpose. And this means that you can for sure reduce your turnover or attract more talents when growing up. So basically, we try to focus on these topics together with other colleagues and friends. We are a group of 9 people currently, and we are very open. So feel free to contact us if you want to give us a hand or know us better. And we have been consultants and also entrepreneurs, some of us, working in the sustainability field for some years. How do we normally help the startups we work with? So basically, this is just our approach in a nutshell. Normally, we try to work during some workshop we organize with startups, and first of all, we help entrepreneurs to identify the social trends, environmental trends, and understand which are the opportunities behind for their businesses. And we do this in one workshop in which we focus our energies on studying the context of where the startup operates. Secondly, during a second workshop, we help entrepreneurs to define their mission, so their social goal, and understand which are the direction to pursue to reach this kind and achieve this kind of goal they will set. And finally, during the last workshop, we help our entrepreneurs to find viable solutions that have both a business and a social environmental sense. So we try to prioritize according to a materiality matrix, which are the most interesting actions that they can take, which will bring business advantages while we'll have a return in terms of social environmental impact. I will leave the floor to Shai.
Thanks, Corrado. Yeah, so the focus for today with this presentation is to really focus on parts of a sustainable business model canvas for your startup, for your idea. Essentially, we will focus on an introduction to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we'll try to have an interactive exercise as well to understand or help you understand the sustainable value proposition for your startup. Understand the resources, the costs, and the different kinds of customers that you're going to target with this sustainable value proposition. And you can kind of follow along with us. We'll send you a link shortly to we'll show you a link to download some worksheets to follow along for the workshop. And you can work on your own individual startup or idea and fill in the sheets along with us during the presentation today. And in the end, you'll be able to understand at least the beginnings of the kinds of elements that your startup can focus on in order to become a more sustainable business. So on the next slide, we can see the link. So you can just type in www.tiny.cc/Movos. And if you go to that link, it'll be a place where you can download the worksheets that we'll be using for the 2 exercises that we'll go through during the workshop. So if you want to type that in, if you want to follow along, you can use that link to download the worksheets. I'll give you guys a few seconds to paste it in and download it.
I don't know, Shai, if there are comments live. I cannot see them because I am presenting right now.
I think so far, no.
Okay. Just tell me. I will, stop and go back to the slides if there are questions or interactions.
Yeah. So far, no. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, and we're gonna have the link shared as well. So yeah, we can begin with a very brief introduction to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Perhaps some of you are already familiar with these Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. They're sort of an internationally agreed set of global challenges for society to address by the year 2030. And there are 17 overarching goals and lots of different sub-targets and objectives to meet under each one. And many businesses globally are using the SDGs as a way to guide their sustainable business strategy. And we'll go through kind of groups of them and how we see them as focused on different kinds of impact. So there's more socially focused goals in the next slide. These goals are focused on social issues like poverty, hunger, healthcare, education, equality for all, peace and justice. And many of the startups that are focused on these goals develop products and services such as digital health or online education, microfinancing and crowdfunding, food distribution, transparency, etc. So they focus on one or more of these kinds of SDGs if they have more of a social mission or a social problem that they're trying to address. And then in the next slide, you'll see more environmentally focused SDGs. So these are the ones that are highlighted are more focused on things like climate change, clean energy, clean water, biodiversity, pollution on land or pollution on water. And a lot of the startups focusing on these SDGs develop products and services like electric vehicles or renewable energy, organic agriculture, organic aquaculture, ecotourism, etc. So these some of the startups focusing on these SDGs are more environmentally oriented, focusing on environmental issues or addressing environmental problems and coming up with different solutions. And then the last kind of group is more economically focused SDGs, and they're focused on things like sustainable growth or industrial efficiency or urban development, waste management and recycling and reuse, circular economy, etc. And the startups focusing on these SDGs develop, smart city solutions or recycling and reuse solutions, Industry 4.0 using technology, etc. Gig economy solutions, new sustainable materials, etc. So this is like the kind of third group of SDGs. And so, a lot of the startups choose to focus on one particular one, or there's one or more that could apply to your business or to your idea. So we thought in the next couple of minutes we could do an exercise with all of you. So in the next slide, you'll see that we'll kind of do a short exercise on which SDGs matter to your startup idea. So if you use the link to download the worksheets, you'll see the first form, relevant SDGs for your startup. And it'll help you kind of go through and understand which SDG is relevant for your startup. So you can see a description of the different SDGs, and you can kind of understand, does this apply to my startup idea? Does this apply to my business? And then what we'll do is, using the SDG value proposition form, we can take a look at the SDGs that you selected and see how it meets the product or service idea that you're focusing on. So, as an example, with Too Good to Go, which Corrado presented earlier in the presentation, it's basically so the product or service or project is Too Good to Go is an app to help consumers buy food that would be thrown away by restaurants and bakeries, or donate those meals to those in need. And the needs or gaps addressed is essentially that food waste is a very big problem, and food waste is thrown away by restaurants and catering companies, are discarded instead of being sent to those in need. So the kind of relevant SDGs, and there's multiple ones here. In this example, it's zero hunger, it's responsible production and consumption. So this is just an example to show how your startup can try to understand, what is the product or service that the idea is developing, what are the needs and gaps addressed, and how does that reflect in terms of the different sustainable development goals that are out there, and does it align to one or more of the 17 goals. So we have more examples for you. So we'll keep this form up, and actually we've filled it in with examples from Corrado and Stefano's startups, and they'll kind of walk you through their thought process as well. So if you're following along and filling this form out, you can kind of see how to fill this out from the perspective of a startup founder.
Yeah. Maybe while you can fill in the worksheet, we can describe a little bit the exercise we tried to do. Me and Stefano are founder of two different startups. Actually, mine is very new, while Stefano's one has some history, some background now, and they are also very different in terms of focus and also impact orientation. For instance, my initially Boniviri is very focused on finding a solution for some social environmental challenges me and my co-founders saw in Sicily, especially in Sicily. And indeed, it is a società benefit, a benefit corporation in terms also of legal entity, which requires some criteria and the pursuing of a social goal together with an economic one. In particular, just to show you how we did the exercise. When describing our product or service or project, we tried just to synthesize in few sentences what we are doing. Basically, Boniviri sells high-quality extra virgin olive oils from small Italian farmers, and in doing so, it tries to solve three main social goals, which are zero emission, zero waste, and zero land abandonment. So this means that with our product, we are calculating the carbon footprint and mitigating it. We are involving both our producers from which we buy the olive oil and our consumers to reduce the waste. And this has been also an effort for us in terms of packaging selection. And finally, we give to our producers an ecosystem of services, help, events, and so on, in order to reduce the land abandonment, because a lot of them, as far as we knew and we understood, are very keen on selling their small fields in order because they are unable, to balance their economic activities, it's not very profitable for them. And this is also the reason why we decided to pay a fair price for the olive oil each year, a little bit above the average price. And in terms of needs and gaps addressed, it's already in the description of the product and the project. However, we try to substantiate it and detail it better here in order to understand really what are the needs that we have seen. So basically, one of the problems we are facing is climate change. Climate change is a problem in agriculture because agriculture is both causing climate change and in turn is receiving or it bears the impact of climate change as well in terms of desertification and extreme climate events. For instance, in terms of impact generated, a bottle of olive oil creates an average of 2, 3, 4 kilos of CO2. One single bottle. So we are trying to face this issue, reducing this amount of CO2 generated. And also the waste is insane, basically, because for one single bottle, the product to package ratio is 1:1. So basically, you buy the bottle which has the same weight of the product. And also in terms of the end of life of the packaging, sometimes it's quite difficult to differentiate the different materials. And finally, it's also an effort in terms of guaranteeing the prosperity of small agribusinesses, which otherwise would sell their enterprise and protect the local tradition and the biodiversity. When you buy a normal olive oil at the supermarket, normally it's from intensive agriculture. That means that they select one or few species of olive oils and olive trees, and that somehow impedes the biodiversity, which is very important, especially in Mediterranean regions like Sicily. And we also selected the relevant SDGs that we thought were important to us. And for instance, there is the SDGs 8, which is more economic oriented, and also the 12, the 13, and the 15. And of course, the most important for us is the 13 in terms of climate change, which is our main goal. SDG 13 is the climate action SDG. I leave the floor to Stefano.
Yeah. So my example is a little bit different from the one of Corrado Startup. It was an example that we wanted to include because it's not a startup that it was born with a social impact-oriented main objective, but the way that the business model works and was built around the idea that that this startup is trying to pursue was all built looking towards the social sustainability, inclusion, and also environmental sustainability. So this could be an example for the ones of you that have a startup with a not so social oriented purpose or environmentally oriented purpose, but that can build around a really good sustainable structure in order to make this startup prosper without doing harm to society or the planet. So in my experience, my exact startup is Campai, that is a marketplace for business and private event services. So the thing is that this startup is a digital startup, is a platform that enables both private and businesses to organize events. So how do we do this? We do this by showcasing products of local suppliers, and local professionals can subscribe to this platform. So we foster the local community, and we foster everything that is transparent kind of transaction and work ethic. So what this my startup wants to do is not only to reduce what is the effort of the practical effort of a business owner or a event manager in a business inside a company, or even a private customer trying to organize a simple event, and making it simpler and easier and more affordable, but also the way that we do it, we try to create benefit not only for the final customer, but also for all the network of actors around this platform. So, for example, one of the main things or main gaps that we want to address for social impact is increase the transparency between the providers and organizers, because many times these jobs are not very transparent. There is not a lot of inclusivity. The fares are not paid rightly. There is not just retribution. So everything is traceable, everything is fair for all the professionals, and everything is local. So our business model is trying to move towards social benefit and sharing. So this type of model, let's say, pivot of standard event management is what makes us really differentiate from other players in the industry. And of course, we promote the local supplier, food and drinks, mainly because it's something that is in our culture to promote local products, and but also at the same time fostering what is a supplier which is sustainable oriented. So actually, we do some kind of vendor rating in order to analyze which are the more sustainable vendors or partners that we can cooperate with in order to reduce waste, in order to have better quality products. And of course, the difference between our two startups is mainly that mine is more digitally and business oriented. But at the same time, as you can see, there are a lot of SDGs that are common between us. And mainly the main SDG that we don't tackle in straight is SDG 13, because the waste reduction is not so relevant in order to make that SDG a very important SDG, but instead SDG 9, which is, let's say, innovation development for infrastructure, for products and services, is something that is really important for us. Also, SDG 8, as Corrado pointed out before, related to, let's say, quality of work and business development. And also SDG 12, which is more related to the reuse of materials and to reduce waste, because this is a very important point for us, because actually what event does is generate a very big amount of waste yearly. So actually there is a problem related to waste management, and it can be solved with the correct business model and utilization of materials and the use of materials that are compostable or recyclable. So this is mainly the example for this first exercise. I think that we talked enough about this. If there are any questions, feel free to ask. In the meanwhile, we can move on to the second exercise. Okay, I think this was already done. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the second exercise is more related to what are the resources, the costs, and who are actually the people who are the users and the customers that you are addressing your product to. So you have to identify in this exercise what is actually the main things that you need to deliver your product and to address the SDGs issues that you already identified. For example, which are the partners or the suppliers or everybody that can support you in order to develop your business or your project towards, obviously, this type of objective that you identified. Also, the technology, financing, or any materials you might want to add to your business model. And of course, the human capital and the expertise, because this is a very important resource that you want to build inside. The second step is to address your costs. So effectively, which are the resources you need in order to effectively do whatever the partners and the materials require. So effectively, which are the main costs of your business, and also very important, the risks. Which are the risks that you're taking, or the risks of your business related to what your value proposition is. Lastly, what are the customers and users who benefit? So it's not only your main customer, but is the overall stakeholders and the overall users and any actor that can benefit who is a network around your business or project. So for example, in the Too Good To Go example, we can see that the key resources required are partners with restaurants and developers, programmers, because they have a huge platform. Of course, costs and risks are related to the limited number of potential customers they have. So actually it's very capital intensive to reach those. But as well, they have broad customers that can benefit, customers and users that can benefit, from the people that can afford eating out to even the students or the city of Milan. So this is a very broad area. We can move to the next thing. So here's the same thing. We have an example of the both our startups. Maybe, Corrado, we can move a little bit faster here because I think we understood.
Yeah, absolutely. So while you work on the exercise, I will describe quickly the approach of Boniviri in terms of key resources required, cost, risks, and customers. So as key resources, we need a network of local producers interested in sustainability, and this is our main asset, basically. Finding small producers that are producing olive oil and at the same time want to commit themselves to more sustainable practices. And secondly, we need the knowledge of olive oil production techniques, and this is the reason why one of the co-founders is a producer himself, and it's very important in order to identify how to make a good olive oil in terms of quality and how to reduce the environmental impact of making a good olive oil. And third, it's very important to have the know-how of how to do a go-to-market and communication strategy, because we are selling basically olive oil, so the go-to-market part is fundamental. Indeed, we would like to fill the gap between the producers and the consumers, and we would like to be the bridge between the two actors. In terms of costs, for our business model, for instance, the main costs are related to the purchasing of local products, to the purchasing of the packaging that we select, and sometimes it can be a little bit more expensive because more sustainable, or sometimes less expensive because more minimal. And the other main cost is the e-commerce, the marketing expenses, and also the software development, because we also need a small platform to collect data from our producers and to put them in contact with consumers. So these are our main identified costs. And in terms of risk, probably the highest risk for us is the inability to reach our customers, because it's basically a niche. We are looking, and I'm moving to the customer part. We are looking for consumers that are able to buy an olive oil at a certain level of price, because of course, since we pay a lot, the producer for their high quality extra virgin olive oil, it cannot be the price of the supermarket, and are willing to purchase online. But most of all, they are willing to create social value through their purchasing and to buy a sustainable products. And it's a challenge to find this kind of customers and to sell them the product and find them, basically. So this is mainly the last but not least, in terms of the other stakeholders. Of course, the main stakeholder for us is the producer, which is at the core of the project.
Okay. So on the other hand, in my example, for example, these key resources and costs and risks are a bit different from Corrado's, because mine's marketplace instead of more like an e-commerce. So actually, the network is a very, very important part for both local suppliers and even professionals, because they have to be curated and have to be selected. And actually, there is a lot of effort and cost related to this part. Of course, the marketplace, which is the core, the engine of all this business model, it has to be the main resource related to this model. Of course, the skills related to event management and planning, because to ensure quality and ensure let's say, market fit. There is a need of event and product management constantly, and this is a key skill in this type of industry. For what concern costs and risk, the main costs, of course, are related to warehousing structures and product stocks, because, of course, there is a part of product stocking in order to work locally with suppliers, and marketing and sales investment, which is pretty common, but in this type of industry is a very important investment. The main risk for this is related to the scalability of the project and the standardization of the events, because going through local suppliers and local professional, it means that every time that you launch a new city or every time you launch a new hub, you should have some kind of partnerships and connection locally. So this is maybe the most risk related activity that can come from our business model. Customers and users are mainly two parts, of course. As I said before, private and businesses are the main customers, and of course they are not satisfied with their event management right now, and they are oriented towards digitalization and sustainability and local products. So this is our main customer. On the other hand, we have all the users of the platform that are suppliers and professionals. So these are let's say, the other side of the platform for us is very important. We treat them like if they were customers themselves, because it's very important to ensure both quality of the event, quality of the product, and quality of the service from the point of view of the local suppliers. Also, having a business model which is transparent, it helps them to improve their quality of work, and so they are a very important stakeholder for us. So these are main examples of different types of resources and risk and customers for these two businesses. We can maybe, if you don't have any question, we can go to the end, so we can wrap things up. So if you have any thoughts, do you have any question about which are the SDGs? Have you identified at least one? Do you think that your business can... Okay, so we have a question. Which are the initial obstacles of a sustainable startup compared to one that is not? Well, of course, as you saw, the main problem maybe for a sustainable startup, and it was common between the two startups that we saw, the startup of Corrado and Too Good To Go, could be also the niche of the market. Because actually reaching a market with a sustainable impact in mind, up to this day, unfortunately, is still a bit of a niche. So you have to open up your market instead of going to a more standardized market, which has a bigger market and an easier to reach market. So maybe that's the first difficulty. But on the other hand, if you go verticalized and through a niche, it could be also differentiating, let's say, a value that differentiates you from other players. So it has a double way of looking at this problem. But that's, I think, in my opinion, is for maybe the main difficulty. I don't know if you, Corrado, have another.
No, it's a matter of cost opportunity, because okay, of course we have an ethical driver when we do a social business or a sustainable driven business. I feel very strongly this kind of vocation. So I would do it in any case. But if we want to put it on a business perspective, the real challenge is to make those efforts that you do to make your business sustainable, which are beyond the average efforts that you do when you create a startup, because you're thinking at other actions that are not only business related. But those actions and then those efforts can produce a value. And this is the real point, in my opinion. So if you think that being sustainable, solving a social or environmental challenge can bring you also business value, that's the intersection where it becomes interesting to create a business, in my opinion. So, for instance, when I was benchmarking all the olive oil producers and sellers in Italy, the marketplace, that there are many marketplaces in Italy and also globally, uh, I was trying to find the competitive advantage, the thing that could make me different from them. And this is the point. They were all talking about sustainability, but in a more defensive way. They didn't want to create value through the business model. They just wanted to show that they were, sourcing locally and so on. While my approach was more, okay, let's try to put consumers and producers together to create social environmental value. Let's find some objectives that they can work together to reach. For instance, reducing the emissions, which is something that both the consumers and the producers should contribute to. And that's the way I saw the business opportunity, uh, doing something while creating social value. And when you find this kind of niche, in my opinion, it's interesting to build a social business. And there are many books about this that can help to think on these kind of opportunities. One of the most famous is the one from Mohamed Yunus, creating social business, that helps a lot to reflect on the social and environmental challenges that are around you, and then to build a business model on top of these challenges to solve these challenges. Yeah, so it's very large answer, but I really care about these topics. If you want to comment it, we can go deeper in the analysis. Or I don't know if maybe Shai has some thoughts about it.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Indeed, a lot of the kind of challenges are the initial costs of as you guys mentioned as well, finding the right kinds of materials, the right kind of producers, the right kind of partners, and then trying to make that business sustainable to recoup those costs through a business model that makes the startup sustainable economically while addressing the different kinds of impacts that you're aiming for.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great challenge, especially at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, there's another question. It's more difficult to start as a sustainable startup or become one. For example, if I want to transform my project after 1-2 years of activity.
This is a very nice question.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Shai, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can start. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely more difficult, I think, to initially focus on sustainability because of all the reasons that Corrado and Stefano mentioned. Indeed, like the effort that you put in order to make the startup sustainable in the beginning is a lot higher than kind of doing it after 1 or 2 years of activity. But at the same time, the benefits that you get are also going to be lower when you do it later on. For example, some of the kind of benefits of having that sustainable focus or sourcing the right kinds of materials, building those kinds of partnerships, etc., really will show off after 1 or 2 years of activity. So if you start late, you also realize the benefits much later as well. So in a sense, if you have the ability to and the option to, it's, in my opinion, always better to kind of think about sustainability issues or incorporate it into your business model as early as possible, because those efforts will pay off in a much larger scale once you will kind of put in that effort, put in that investment, and then your startup will become all the more stronger and more resilient and more sustainable because of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Shai. In my opinion, if you can, it's better to do it as soon as possible. If you believe in this mindset, of course, and you should consider both the two different approaches that you can take. You can be more radical and say, I want to solve the social environmental issues through my business, And this is a very radical approach. And in this case, of course, you have to think about it from the beginning. But you can try to be more sustainably oriented. So it means do not cause harm to environment or society, and try to contribute to the wellness of people you work with or to the consumers and so on. And in this last case, of course, you can do it on the go. Many companies, me and Stefano, we work with a lot of companies that were changing a little bit their sustainability approach, drafting sustainability reports, trying to understand what were the main social, environmental externalities that they had. It's absolutely possible. However, when, as Shai said, you have to start to categorize your suppliers, change them, start to reconsider how you do your packaging or how you do your products. Is much difficult if you do it later. I am experiencing it now. I'm trying to select really the best producers I can, and the best olive oil transformers mills that I can find in order to, pave the way for the future. Otherwise, changing them after would be much more difficult.
Yeah, I can add to this from my personal experience. Actually, being a co-founder of a non-sustainable born impact startup, you have to be careful, because the more you wait, the more difficult it becomes to turn your business model into a sustainable business model. And what you risk is that at the end you just do some kind of I don't know, quick fixes, and you're not able anymore to change your full business model into a sustainable business model. But what you end up doing, because of the capital is required to change it, is you just end up doing some quick fixes and some very cost zero actions that bring benefit but that are not in line. So actually, from a startup for a startup point of view, waiting 1-2 years to start building, you have to have a very strong sustainability oriented management, because if not, it will be very difficult to put
for you, Stefano, the example was also the example of the packaging, the plastic glasses. You started with the normal ones, you're changing, and this is a nice example to show. If you start selecting the suppliers from the beginning, probably it's much easier. And it's also important to understand the needs of your customers as well. So if you're targeting a certain type of customers and you know their expectations in terms of sustainability, it's better to match them from the beginning. And nowadays, and we were talking about it before, more and more people and customers are interested in sustainable products. So it's risky to not being sustainable, I guess. It can be.
The last question.
Yeah.
So, inability to reach the niche market appears to be an issue related to dissemination of information. What are the difficulties in finding marketing companies with expertise in this area? Okay, so if by marketing companies we mean just agencies that can promote your business, I think that the main reason that it is difficult is because when a startup is born and there is a capital that is put in by co-founders, is not always so immediate to go and take an action towards a marketing company. So this could be a very common issue. So not many startups can have the financial power to go to marketing companies that have an expertise in this particular area. Actually, I don't know any particular agency that has a specific expertise. I think that mainly there is a kind of market research and they become experts while they work on it, but I don't know any agency that is specified in this area. Of course, I agree with this question that is related to dissemination of information, because if you have actually a good product market fit and you can demonstrate this at local level or in a small type of let's say market that you can try on, the main issue is how to scale this. So this thing is more related to effectively a budget, but the first thing is market product fit, which actually is the main problem why startups fail. So if you get that market product fit and the niche you get right, as Corrado explained you before, and you have the budget, it gets much easier. But the main problem with the marketing companies here at this point probably is budget. And because if you find the niche, then you're set. You can go, you can have a very successful growth if no competitor appears and have some kind of differentiation. So that this is true. In my opinion, this is how it could be solved.
Yeah, and I just very quickly will add to that indeed it's a big problem that a lot of startups face, as Stefano mentioned, and it's something that I'm trying to explore as well with some research on how do startups that are sustainably focused or socially focused find those kinds of right customers, the right kind of partners to work with, because it's incredibly important to identify those people early on in order to, as we said at the earlier question, build those partnerships and make those investments that will be much more difficult to change later on. So indeed, like, it's incredibly important if you're trying to start a sustainable business to find the right kinds of supply chain partnerships, business partnerships, customer partnerships, etc., very early on, and trying to kind of understand the landscape of who your potential customers could be, how interested they could be in your product, and finding that product market fit is hugely important, even more so probably for socially focused or environmentally focused social impact kind of startup.
Yeah, just to close, the main advice I can give you for this topic actually is to generate the initial traction that will assure you economic sustainability, even if in small scale. Because actually, the thing that you want to do if you want to scale is generate traction, and to generate initial traction, you have to do things that don't scale. So this maybe actually is a very important part that many overlook. So this is my advice, maybe. So I think we should wrap this up, and thank you everybody for participating. We are mobile, so you can contact us anytime. At the end of the slides, we have our contacts, so in some way we will going to send this to you, and we will do some kind of analysis in your projects and the workshop that Corrado explained to you. Of course, free of charge, so don't be afraid. And I hope we will meet soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone.